First it was ram raids, now it's smash and grabs as unruly youths switch up their choice of crime. Over the past 6 weeks there's been at least 12 jewellery store incidents across Auckland, roughly half at Michael Hill's stores, and most daylight robberies when both customers and staff are on site. A jewellery store owner whose botany store has been hit by daylight robberies 4 times this year says it's left him and his staff frightened.
The staff were on the side. She was the one mostly terrified, but because they threatened to hammer her. So that is quite serious. They were laughing, as simple as that, and they just don't care what is the consequences of their action. They just go for it and do it. She's a young lady standing there by herself. You'll just have to live with it for the rest of your life.
What we're seeing is that these violent situations are creating enormous stress and enormous pressure on the staff, the workers, the managers, and potentially the customers. But also the real risk and the big risk is the one about safety, and that's increasingly where people are concerned. We don't want people to be getting hurt when they're out shopping.
Meanwhile, a watch store in Remuera was hit both earlier this month and again this week by thieves armed with an axe. The most recent incident prompting fellow store owners to fight back.
And I heard our office manager screaming, then I heard the breaking glass and I thought, oh dear, we've been done again, because it was only 1 month ago exactly that they attacked the front window with heavy rocks, hammers and crowbars. The man who used a sign to attack the offenders says he's had enough.
So I think, I've got a right to protect my community. I think I should do that. And I think that if people can get together and not put up with this sort of thing, we're going to be a better society for it.
Community leaders, meanwhile, are urging for more to be done about youth crime in New Zealand. Auckland councillor and former police officer Alf Filipina says we need more youth workers to address the wider issues at play.
The meetings are over. What we need to do now is to get our youth workers working with our youth, but also working with our families. Because if we fix the families, we then fix the possible problem that our youth are having by not going home, by looking at gangs, by looking at other groups. So the talking's done.
In the meantime, police have responded with increased patrols at shopping malls and other hotspots. Police Minister Chris Hipkins recently said in a statement that youth offending was a complex, long-term issue and that the government was looking at things like school attendance as a way to steer young people away from crime. But many argue more can be done to see an end to robberies like this.
So government, if you're listening, if you're seeing this, come on board. Let's do something together to at least get some funding for our youth workers, people that can make a big difference in the areas they live in.
The courts are just giving these guys a rap on the knuckle and they're getting released back into the system. They're often very young.
Figures supplied by police under the Official Information Act show there were 109 gun crimes in the super city for the month of May, an average of more than 3 per day. Until the end of April, Auckland saw an average of around half that, just 54 offences involving a gun per month.
But I think this government needs to do something about that.
It's your issue, you guys deal with it, and that's the government attitude. Everybody's trying to put a blame either in the security manager or the police. Let's be honest, police are, for example, staff like you and me. They get paid, they do their job. When they are understaffed and they haven't got the resources, they cannot do their job. So if you ask me, my honest and humble opinion is the government to be blamed. It's the government that is failing us.
It's deeply heartbreaking, but when I think about the sort of young people that I know that have come into contact with these sort of situations and have been involved in these things, these are kids that have experienced some really severe trauma.
It's not just the businesses that will lose their property, it's ordinary people losing the cars they need to get to work.
I woke to my dog barking, went outside and there was people breaking into my car. I thought it was just one person, so I went to confront them and 4 jumped out of my car with hammers, started swearing at me and telling me that I was going to die.
He says police told him it would likely be used for a ram raid.
Apparently they like to stash the cars and then use them at a later date.
His vehicle, a Toyota Aqua.
They said that they're really easy to start with a knife or something.
They're not necessarily easy to steal for an ordinary person, but these criminals are networking and explaining to each other how to get around the security systems. So they're stealing them, and then they're...
Advice for car owners.
Number one thing that you can do is to fit a decent security system to your car. Basically, if the criminals can't start it, they can't steal it.
This victim believes those who stole his car were young.
They just dumped my valuables, so they had no interest in selling them, obviously. My opinion is that they're just doing it for notoriety.
We need to actually respond rather than react to what's going on. Because if the reality is we have a whole bunch of really hurt kids who need support and care, then we need to respond to that.